Thank you. Now I give the floor to speakers who speak on behalf of political groups. We start with the EPP. Mrs. Bentele, 2 minutes.
We need a microphone, please. Micro.
Sorry, your mic is not on.
Oh, okay. No. Okay.
The speed and the extent to which we see the loss of forest acres is breathtaking. We contribute to this because we consume palm oil and soy and beef and in Europe, and we are responsible for at least 10%. We have to take action. We have to change this trend. We have to support protect the forest. And we have this common resolution, and I think we're taking the right step. We especially want to have traceability throughout the trade chain. And we want to ensure that this does not come from somewhere where we have deforestation as a result. And all of the enterprises who wish to have their products on the European markets, if they would respect that, we would really have achieved a great deal of progress, which will help us live up to our responsibility worldwide for the forests. But we need the enterprises as our partners. We need stronger measures when we have greater risks. We need measures that can be implemented by smaller and medium-sized enterprises. And we need an impact assessment. We need legal certainty with clear rules. And I think it would be quite fortunate if we could look at existing advisory systems. We can make them standardized and then perhaps have an EU label. So we have discussed this in the committee. We have to protect not just the forest, but also the indigenous peoples and their human rights. However, we should not just create false facts, and we should have limit the possibility of creating loopholes. So, with this new legal framework, we are going to have great hope and expectation that we can reduce the amount of deforestation and then create a standard for the other 90% of consumers. I think it's very important that we take the measures right now and that they work very quickly. Thank you very much.
On behalf of SND, Mrs. Guteland, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no doubt that the global deforestation is an enormous problem, and we need to take good care of the world's forests. They are the lungs of this earth. There is an ongoing and very worrisome trend with loss of global tree cover and destruction of forest in many third countries outside of Europe. This has dramatic consequences for our climate and our ecosystems. But it also has grave social impacts. Almost every fourth person in the world today depends on forests for their daily livelihood and income, not at least indigenous people around the world. For example, in Amazon, are heavily dependent on forest, and deforestation threatens their livelihood. There are also completely flagrant and abhorrent human rights violations due to conflict linked to this situation. In Amazon region alone, we have seen how more than 300 people have been killed in resource and land use conflict in the last decade. This is really awful and can never be accepted. Although this deforestation takes place in other parts of the world, we see here in Europe that we have a responsibility to act. Our own consumption is a big part of the problem. It contributes to at least 10% of global deforestation. Therefore, we must look at ways to better ensure that we halt the global deforestation, also through our own consumption. As a consumer, I want to know that my consumption doesn't have negative effects on the environment and also for the people who live in other countries. Commodities used in EU should of course not lead to deforestation and human rights abuse in the countries where the products have been produced. I think all of us agree on that, and now it's time to act. Thank you.
On behalf of Renew Europe, Mr. Confon, 1 minute.
Thank you, President. Commissioner, I think all of us want, when we drink a cup of coffee, when your children, my children, eat chicken escalope, to know whether or not we're contributing to deforestation in the Amazon. Today, as things stand, unfortunately, as we don't know, as there are no European rules preventing products coming from deforestation in the Amazon or the DRC from coming onto our markets, it's highly likely that, unfortunately, although we don't know it, we're contributing to deforestation, and it's the rules we need to change. We need to change them, I think, in a fairly simple way, which most people can agree to. The draft framework that we'll be voting on is supported by the extreme left to the EPP, by the right, the centre, the left, the Greens, which means that we can find a compromise if we work smartly on this, because it's in our common interest. It benefits consumers and it also protects a common good of the world, the Amazon. I heard that you were planning to propose in the first quarter of 2021 a draft legislation on this subject. We will support that if it is ambitious and if it's consistent with what we're proposing today, which once again is supported by a very broad political majority. The situation's quite simple. There are European companies today who have shown the way, who can say, I have brought deforestation to an end in my supply chain. All we need to do is to take those success stories, their good practices, and say, okay, in future, if you want to sell chocolate, soya, palm oil on European markets, you are going to have to repeat these good practices that have already been put in practice by the best European companies. It's an easy path to follow. More transparency. And same thing for traders, really. Commissioner, the traders are a black box at the moment. That box needs to be opened up if we are going to combat deforestation. We're counting on you, and Parliament will be supporting your efforts. Thank you.
On behalf of ID, Mr. Hakkarainen, 1 minute and a half.
Arvoisa puhemies, metsäkato ei ole niinkään
Thank you, President. Well, deforestation is not really a problem for Europe. The main cause is human beings and what they do. And if we can't deal with that, then we're going to have a problem. Let me give you an example. We have billions in development assistance that we provide, and deforestation just continues to increase. And I think that really shows that we're doing things wrong. Things aren't going to improve if we continue along the same path. We have good models that we can follow. Forests are increasing in size. In Finland, for example, Finland is an exemplary country in this area. When trees are cut down, we have an obligation to plant new ones, to reforest, and we could bring the same model to developing countries. In addition, the cost of reforestation is very low. Look at me. I have planted 100,000 trees myself. In Finland, there is a model which fights deforestation and in pursuant to which we increase forested areas. Thank you.
On behalf of Greens/EFA, Mrs. Toussaint,
Oui, bonjour.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, President, dear colleagues, Commissioner. I think we need to recognise how important this text is, and congratulations to the rapporteur, Mrs. Bocat. We could defend forests because they're beautiful, because they link us to the origins of the world, because they defend the rights of nature, but we should also realise that we should be defending forests because we are, through them, protecting our own existence, because forests are the lungs of the world. Between 1970 and 2012, 58% of vertebrate animals disappeared because of deforestation. So how can we preserve biodiversity without preserving forests? It's not possible. Can we meet our climate goals without preserving forests? Once again, the answer is no, because forests cover 31% of the world, and after oceans are the second largest carbon sink of the world. Continuing to destroy them means that we will lose the climate battle. Plus, deforestation also leads to threats to indigenous populations, sometimes threatened with murder because they're defending their land and their rights. Deforestation leads to the infringement of human rights defenders' rights, who are also threatened. Forests are being destroyed so that trade can prosper, and again, we tend to be very short-term. European industry is responsible for 40% of deforestation throughout the world. World for 40%, EU 10%. Therefore, we do have a responsibility, and our companies have a responsibility, as do the people behind finance. All of us have a responsibility here, and we have to ensure access to justice. We have to protect environmental defenders. We also have to bring a finish to the ecocide happening in the Amazon, and we have to ensure, finally, there's a legal status for international common goods. We need to defend this text. We're talking about our future, we're talking about our Europe, we're talking about our responsibility vis-à-vis the destruction of the planet.
On behalf of ECR, Mrs. Aguilar, 1 minute.
Gracias, presidente.
Thank you, President. Global deforestation is a problem that brings us together, but what separates us is the way in which we deal with this. We can't use the fight against deforestation to attack biotechnology without data or trying to move towards a vegan paradise. We can't mistake a concern such as soya and link that into deforestation, because soya is essential as animal feed, and it mainly comes from North America, where there is no deforestation. Voluntary agreements are one thing, but we need fair competition and the will to act in the sector to reduce deforestation outside the European Union. Let me be clear here. We need, in the European Union, to ban the import of any products that come from areas that have suffered deforestation. But let's not focus this debate only on Latin America. Deforestation is much more a problem in areas of Asia and Africa that we're not talking about here. Thank you.
On behalf of GUE NGL, Mrs. Konečná, 1 minute and a half.
Vážené kolegyně, colleagues, Mr. President, thank you for giving me the floor. I've been following deforestation for almost 5 years, partly because I was the historically first rapporteur of this Parliament for deforestation and palm oil. During this time, unfortunately, I have seen all kinds of delaying tactics on the part of the Commission, and I have heard many fairy tales from third country representatives who would say that everything is all right and we are doing all we can. I have to say that I have had enough. For quite a while, we have been witnessing total devastation of worldwide woods and virgin forests. I do not want to point fingers because this is a worldwide problem. What I find crucial, though, is that the EU is a part of it, which also means that it also bears the burden of seeking for a solution. There is no other way, since we use palm oil in biofuels and European banks finance deforestation in third countries. I would like to thank our rapporteur for her work, and I do hope, colleagues, that her report will not be amended by those who believe that the problems will be solved by hiding our heads in the sand, or by those who want to push the entire complex issue onto the consumer. In her State of the Union speech, Ursula von der Leyen touched the issue of deforestation several times, and I believe that the European Parliament should not be afraid to take an ambitious approach and not amend the Envy Committee opinion. Those of you who voted Ursula von der Leyen in, please support her words and support our text. Thank you.
For non-attached members, Mrs. Evi, 1 minute and a half.
From the beginning of this debate, right through to the last speaker, up to 2,000 football fields of forest will have been lost. Since 1990 to 2016, over 1 million hectares of forest have been cut down. That's equivalent of about 800 football fields an hour. And in the Amazon, the rate is extremely fast. A football field every single minute. And this trend shows no signs of being reduced. This year, deforestation in the Amazon has increased by 55% on last year. But just complaining about Bolsonaro's criminal, foolish policies is not enough. We also need to start talking about the crime of ecocide and looking at our own household. Look at the way we consume rubber, timber, soy, and other products. We're responsible for a good proportion of the destruction. But it's not enough for us to simply label which products have zero deforestation and which are not zero deforestation. It can't be left up to consumers. Rather, we should ensure that products that lead to forest destruction and degradation cannot be on the shelves in Europe. We need to ensure that the whole value chain is free of deforestation. Over the last few years, EU member states seem to have had no problems financing people who have destroyed natural habitats, even within our own borders. Let's try and prevent this from happening in future.
Our next speaker is Mr. Viezik, 2 minutes.
Thank you. A total of 13 million hectares are deforested globally each year. The main driver of deforestation is expansion of agricultural land and the production of 3 commodities: soy, beef and palm oil. The Union has its share on it, as it imports up to 10% of the global consumption of products associated with deforestation. We will ask the Commission to come up with a legal framework to prevent this and make supply chains bringing products to our market sustainable. Global preservation of forests and preventing their degradation are some of the biggest sustainability challenges of our time. Crucial steps are needed to achieve that, but we are opposing and fighting against these steps even in this very House. We should stop pretending that there exists the single ultimate solution called sustainable forest management, a remedy for deforestation. We will lose primary forests all around the world in a vain attempt to manage them sustainably. We must protect primary forests from being extracted. Not only forests, however, are affected by the degradation due to economic activities. In Brazil, the Cerrado ecosystem is a biodiversity hotspot, home to 5% of the global biodiversity. The conversion and degradation of this ecosystem has been happening at a higher pace than for the Amazon rainforest region. And it is crystal clear that these ecosystems will be exposed to increased pressure to be turned into agricultural land. The problem is complex. I will vote in favour of a call for a legal framework which takes account for forest and other valuable ecosystems and recognises therefore forest and ecosystem risk commodities. To sum up, I congratulate the rapporteur for preparing such a complex and effective file, and I am ready and happy to vote in favour of it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Luena, 2 minutes.
Gracias, queridos. Thank you, colleagues. Commissioner, in today's debate, it's important when fighting against global deforestation. I'd like to thank the rapporteur for the excellent work. But We have declared a climate emergency in this Parliament, and we've voted on the climate law to ensure climate neutrality. And we need a further step to turn this institution into the most environmentally friendly in the world. We need to be at the vanguard in the fight against climate change. But what do forests mean? Forests are unique ecosystems which are home to 60,000 different species, 80% of amphibians, and 75% of birds, and many mammals on the earth too. They are carbon sinks based on air purification, water purification, carbon absorption, and they regulate temperatures too. That's what forests mean. And how do we protect them? Article 125 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the EU is what this legislative proposal is based on, and I hope that it will be turned into reality soon. We need to protect forest ecosystems, and I don't want us to forget natural ecosystems, including wetlands. And of course, we must include chapters on sustainable development that must be binding. Let me say that again, binding. These must be binding in our FTAs, free trade agreements, in such as those with Mercosur and as part of Paris, the Paris Agreement. We're facing the 6th extinction of species, and we need to make the most of this dynamism, of the momentum of this report to protect ecosystems, biodiversity and forests. Thank you.
Mrs. Müller, 2 minutes.
President, Commissioner, colleagues, we Europeans have been working for many years on trying to reduce our environmental footprint. Of course, it's only natural that we should look at the consequences of our imports as well. We need to look at our contribution to the loss of the rainforests, and that's why I welcome this initiative. However, we do actually need to do good things rather than simply putting a green fig leaf in front of us. The problem is that we need to ensure that we don't just create bureaucratic burdens. We will continue to need imports, as we all know. Fruits like cocoa, coffee, other products don't grow in Europe. We also need to look through the value chain, but that will only work if we continue to trade with the affected regions and help them to be more sustainable. If we make this unimplementable, we will be cutting ourselves off from the world. These imports will end up going to other countries that care less about the rainforest. So that's why I'm calling for a proper impact assessment of this legislation and a proper scope. We do not want to create legal risks. I would like to absolutely reject that such an approach. So we need to take a step towards these third countries. We need to ensure that proper forestry principles are followed around the world. We are a world leader in sustainable forestry. I think that we need to ensure that we do not have two different measures in how we deal with this. With this law on the value chain, we shouldn't be creating new burdens for our own foresters. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Beigneux, 1 minute and a half.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, President. Europe, may I remind you, is the leading continent when it comes to import deforestation. Across the world, 3 million hectares are deforested every year, and this mostly happens in tropical forests. Once again, the EU is the main link in the chain of deforestation. And deforestation is mainly linked to 3 commodities: soy, beef and palm oil. There's a direct link between deforestation and climate change. 12% of greenhouse gas emissions occur as a result of deforestation, degrading major endemic ecosystems, in particular in the tropics, which are so important for the regulation of the climate. And I could have voted in favour of this report if it did not contain two major mistakes. Once again, this is a report that will enable NGOs to sentence sovereign states via arbitration courts. This is an unspeakable attack on the sovereignty of our nations. Secondly, the EU is just clearing its conscience. It's useless to create zero deforestation label products when the real problem here is free trade agreements. And once again, your ultra-European vision is hurting producers as well as the environment. You are inexorably a link in the chain of deforestation. Let's withdraw from the too many free trade agreements ratified by Europe. Let's choose a different model based on local, and let's put an end to this excessive liberalisation and come back to a really ethical model. Thank you.
Mrs. Deparnay-Grunenberg, 1 minute.
Dear Chair, dear members, a surface bigger than Switzerland is lost to deforestation worldwide every year. As Europeans, we are sadly jointly responsible every day for deforestation, for an incredible loss of biodiversity, for speeding up climate change and for harming the rights of indigenous people. For example, when we simply order a ham sandwich at a station and so maybe consume meat from animals that have been fed with soy planted on illegally logged forest soil. No wooden product sold in Europe should come from illicit sources. No product that indirectly result from illegal logging should be important. And we know the mechanism that can help. A mandatory due diligence for all enterprises in our common market. People in Europe know that forests are the lungs of our planet, so let's act now. Thank you.
Mrs. Glavak, 1 minute and a half.
According to Global Forest Watch, every 6 seconds we lose a primal forest of the size of a football field, or 7,400 square meters. In spite of all the successes in protecting forests, the data of the FAO on the status of global forest for this year point to a single fact. The fight for preserving forests is not over. Deforestation has a negative impact on many global goals of the EU in areas such as the protection of biodiversity, climate change, human rights, peace and security, and rule of law. The European Union is the most attractive global market. It is time to build our positive norms in our trade agreements. We must take measures to ensure that goods imported in the EU do not derive from deforestation. This is why I welcome this initiative, and I believe that the European Commission will consider these regulatory measures which can drive down deforestation. My speech takes 90 seconds. During this time, 15 forests of the size of a football pitch have been deforested, have disappeared. We can change this if we act, and I think we should start acting now. Thank you.
Mrs. Van Brent, 1 minute and a half.
Dank u wel, voorzitter. Het rapport rond de ontbossing verdient.
Thank you very much, President. Our report on deforestation deserves full and entire support. Colleagues, this is a turning point in our history. Deforestation in Amazonia, for example, if it continues at this rate, by 2030, all of the carbon that has been stored there for thousands of years will have been released into the atmosphere. Across Latin America, temperatures will be increasing by 2 degrees just because of this deforestation. So this is a historic turning point. We're all victims at this point in time of a worldwide pandemic, and we all know where it comes from. We continue to intervene in nature, and we have to start asking where the next pandemic will emerge from. Will it come from the forests in Congo, where there is more and more deforestation as well? Will we see it in other places like Ukraine, where IKEA is responsible for a large amount of deforestation? 10% of deforestation around the world is caused by what we consume in Europe. What we eat has consequences at the world level. We have to take our share of responsibility for this, and that's why the report is so important. We need legislation that can set rules for companies. Their imports are welcome, provided that there is fairness and justice for the environment.
Gracias, presidente.
Thank you, President. Yes, this is a crucial discussion. It's crucial because every year we're losing forest mass, the equivalent of Belgium. And that's a loss in tropical forests, and it's a loss that can't be made up for, because these primeval forests can't be made up for just by planting trees. Forests are much more than just trees, and that's why it's absolutely essential to take action swiftly. And the EU is responsible for about 10% of global deforestation. So we need safe standards. And this is not a legislation that's being wielded against anyone. It's a legislation in favour of something. Something like European businesses that are in line with environmental and human rights standards and that are competing in a market with a great disadvantage. They're competing against businesses that aren't held to these standards. And that's against what's best for consumers. We need businesses with a transparent supply chain. And that's what this legislation will be defending. It's also going to be in favour of consumer rights with clear labelling, so we know what's on our tables, what's in our homes, knowing that this doesn't come from deforestation or the exploitation of forests that have already been massively destroyed. This is legislation in favour of all those who die every year because they're defending the forests and the environment. Something that's going to make us understand that every time we log even one tree, we are doing away with the whole of life on this planet. We're all victims and we're all responsible too. Thank you.
Mrs. Bilde, 1 minute.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, President. It's a pleasure for me to speak to you from the beautiful city of Strasbourg. Now the spotlights of the whole world are pointed on the Amazonian forest, but another drama is taking place to general indifference, and that is deforestation in Africa. The forests of the African continent are disappearing at a faster rate than others. The demographic explosion is one of the major causes of this terrible development. By creating agricultural fields, we are destroying essential biodiversity that will allow our agriculture to thrive. So, in addition to all of this, we have the same kind of problems you see elsewhere, the production of palm oil, which you can see taking place in Cameroon and the DRC. This is a catastrophe. The tropical forest of the Congo Basin is the second largest forest of the world. Through exploitation and land grabbing, Africans are likely to end up losing out. And this is a major problem, not just for them, but also for us.
Vice President Hautala, 1 minute, please.
Thank you, President. Now is indeed the moment for European leadership in order to make sure that we don't have deforestation or child labour in our supply chains. And I would like to communicate to you a message that has been sent today by major operators in this field, namely food producers such as Mars and Mondelez, who say that they, as major buyers of cocoa and other agricultural producers, and other products with the long-standing engagement and continued efforts for sustainable cocoa, they defend the report of Mrs. Burkhardt, and they warn against the amendments that are put there to water down the idea that we need mandatory measures, because that's what they want. They need mandatory measures because they know that voluntary mechanisms don't function. They are not able to guarantee supply chains which are free of deforestation and child labour.
Mr. González Casares, 1 minute and a half.
Yesterday, they were forests, they no longer are. Today, they are no more. This is what a Galician poet said about the destruction of the forests. And it's clear every forest tells a story. Stories of protection of human life. If we get rid of our forests, then we harm ourselves. And that's what this report is about. That's why I'd like to thank my companion, because this report helps us fight against deforestation in all parts of the planet. It establishes rules for our models of consumption. We need better regulation. We need to protect the primal forests, the indigenous, not just outside the European Union, but here at home we see deforestation and an agro-industry model that is substituting another. So we have to defend ourselves too. Felling a tree, destroying a forest, encourages climate change. It also means that there is rural exodus. So not just animals in biodiversity terms, but also human beings. That's why we demand a regulation that protects forests at all levels. That would benefit the EU.
Mr. Procaccini, 1 minute.
Grazie, Presidente. Thank you very much, President. Well, the fact that here in this Parliament we're talking about deforestation is a positive thing in itself. This is a problem that needs to be dealt with head on. It shouldn't be ignored, but it has to be done with the due distance from the usual environmentalist extremism. We know very well that our planet is getting greener and greener. You can see that in scientific studies produced over the last few years. That's the result of political choices taken far away from here. And that, paradoxically, is an effect of global warming. We know that deforestation in the tropics cannot be compensated by the reforestation taking place elsewhere in the world. So I think it's welcome that there is particular attention to the use of forested areas. But we don't want to be putting unnecessary burdens on the shoulders of European companies for geopolitical reasons. That would not be fair to them, particularly not at a moment like this one.
Now I give the floor again to Commissioner Sinkevičius for his closing remarks.
Thank you.